So this video is going to be for the module PN4038, Design and Communication Graphics 6, Week 10, Lab 9. So as we move down into the content of this lab, as you can see here, what we're going to be doing is moving on to our slides 11 and 12, which are going to focus in on the assessment in relation to our intervention that we're developing. Now, the first slide, as you can see here, slide 11, will be talking about formative assessment strategies, while slide 12 will be zoning in on summative assessment strategies. As you can see here, there's a few different prompts or subsections that we've kind of added in just to give you a small bit of context and what we want to see within these different slides. So if we look through slide 11 first of all. So slide 11, formative assessment strategies. So obviously here we're focusing on a formative assessment. So for the time being, you can forget about summative assessment. So first of all, explain the purpose of formative assessment in your intervention. In this section, we want you to go into a bit of detail in relation to why you think formative assessment is important within your intervention. I just want to identify here, I suppose, the effect size in relation to formative assessment. It is 0.9. Now, that's actually an extremely high effect size for the impact on students' achievement. It's actually one of the highest, if not the highest factor that impacts student achievement. So you can see the importance of getting formative assessment right and implementing it into your intervention. How important that is to have in there, being one of the I suppose the most important factor in relation to improving student achievement. Now, if any of you are still, I suppose, a small bit blurry on assessment, which you shouldn't be really after completing a second-year placement and fourth-year placement, but if you feel that you need a small bit of a refreshing in the information in relation to it, the book that I provided you with in a previous lab, or the link I provided you to a database that you can download this book, you can see here Jeff Petty's teaching today on his chapter 43. He goes into depth talking about assessment in relation to formative assessment and summative assessment that you might find very handy when talking about this. Also, what I want to kind of add there is that formative assessment itself can be in many different forms. So don't think that it's just this one way that you can implement formative assessment, which I'm sure that you're all aware. But do have a look, have a bit of research, explore different ways that you could bring formative assessment within the classroom. Sometimes teachers are carrying out formative assessment and they don't even realise that they're carrying out formative assessment. Now, the formative assessment they're carrying out might not be the most effective way of carrying it out, but it still is formative assessment. Now, we want you to have a fairly informed view in relation to carrying out formative assessment. So we want you, if we see something that looks like formative assessment, we want to see that you've indicated that this is formative assessment and this is why we're doing it. This is why I'm doing this, to provide the students with feedback so that they can build upon what they already know and improve upon it. So as well as that, demonstrating the inclusion of 3 different assessment activities that will be used to support the learner's process. So as you can see here within the slide, basically you're going to be I suppose giving detailed information about 3 different formative assessment activities that you will be carrying out. Now, ensure that you're developing how you're going to carry out this particular formative assessment. If you have to provide examples of worksheets or however you want to carry out formative assessment, it's fairly wide ranging. Just give information on that and detailed information at that, so that we can see that you understand formative assessment and you understand how to effectively carry it out within a classroom. Now moving on to slide 12, where we're talking about summative assessment strategies. As you can see here, first of all, it's similar to slide 11, where it started off with explain the purpose of summative assessment at the end of your learning events. Now, you can see here why we're saying having summative assessment at the end of the learning events. That's usually when summative assessment is carried out, is towards the end of a topic or at the end of a certain section or at the end of a particular year. Summative assessment is usually carried out. The reason for that is because the actual impact on students' achievement, you can see here the effect size is only 0.05. So it's actually a fairly low effect size. So it's a low impact on the student themselves. But summative assessment gives us plenty information as a teacher to see where students are at, if they've hit certain goals that we might have set out for them, and see how close they are to hitting them goals. So if we need to do how would you say, develop students in a particular area a small bit more so that they get that bit closer to achieving it, summative assessment is very handy for that. Now, as you can see over on the right hand side, it says the typical effect size is 0.4, which is a leap of 1 grade. So having a 0.05 impact is very small on how it impacts students' achievement. But as a tool for a teacher to inform them in relation to how the students are getting on, it's a very valuable tool. As well as that, within the slide, we want you to design and present a summative assessment tool that you would conduct at the end of your designed intervention. So the most important thing here is that you're making and designing an assessment tool that is going to be an effective one at basically assessing the students and seeing that they have hit the learning outcomes that you've set out for them particular students. As you can see here also, I just put in on page 501 of Jeff Petty's Teaching Today book, he talks about reliability and validity of assessment. These are two extremely important points when thinking about designing a tool for assessment. Because if I have a look at your learning outcomes and I have a look through your assessment, and if I see that they are not, it's the assessment tool that you've designed is not reliable or valid in relation to what you've set out for them, I'll be able to see that quickly. So if you kind of have a read through reliability and validity of assessment, this can be useful for you when designing this particular assessment tool. Now, as you can see here, it says refer back to your learning outcomes and show how the summative assessment will allow learners to opportunity to demonstrate attainment of their graphic capability. So again, this is just showing that you have taken into consideration your learning outcomes, and this assessment that you have set out at the very end of your intervention is actually assessing that all these learning outcomes have been hit to the full extent, or to the extent that you set them out to be hit. Now, obviously, when you're designing a summative assessment, you want to have it in such a way that it's going to separate out students, that it will show that some students aren't doing so well or some students are doing particularly well. You don't want that everyone's going to get full marks, or everyone's going to do really poor, or everyone's going to get midway. You want to design such a way that there's different levels to the assessment, that it lets you break the students out and see what level they are at, and how close they are to achieving your learning outcomes in general. Past that, I just want to identify that the assignment 2 rubric is up. Just have a look at this in relation to your slides 11 and 12. You might find it helpful when looking at what we expect from a student who's going to be getting 8 to 10 marks in these two sections. As well as that, now you all should be aware that we are looking for your Google Slide links by Sunday the 5th of April, so that we can give you feedback through Google Slides using the comment feature. So just ensure that you have anyone who wants feedback for their intervention, that you do have it submitted by Sunday the 5th of April using that link that Nikki sent you out through an announcement on Solas. As well as that, the deadline for this particular assignment will be Sunday of week 11. So just ensure that you stay on it now, you keep working on it, and you develop it to the best of your abilities. After that, also we have our Google Forms. It's still live. Anytime a question comes in, we ensure that we answer, and we try to answer it every single day. So we're very consistent in keeping up answering these questions. So just ensure, if you do have questions, send in here. Because if you do have an important question, me and Nikki will both be able to see it and deal with it fairly quickly, rather than putting it into our emails and getting lost among all the 50 or 60 emails that we get sent a day. But past that, keep trying to work through this. If you have any other questions, be sure, or if you have any questions that you'd like to ask me or Nikki privately, and you want to keep it out from PN4038 queries, that's absolutely fine. Send us an email and we'll discuss the situation, see if we can help.